Hello, my name is Gaëtan Lepage and I'm thrilled to be talking at NeovimConf this year. Today I will tell you how to use Nix to configure Neovim. So let's dive right in. What is Nix? It can be a little bit confusing because Nix is three things at the same time. First, it is a functional programming language. This language is used to build a package manager and the associated repository Nix packages. And this package manager is available on all the Linux distributions as well as macOS. Lastly, Nix is a Linux distribution which is called NixOS. So Nix packages takes form in a big GitHub monorepo that has the definition, the recipes to build all the packages stored in it. And currently it has more than 80,000 packages, so it's even more than our beloved AUR. One thing to note that will be important for later is that many Vim plugins, so more than 1500 today, are packaged inside Nix packages. Now NixOS. NixOS is a special Linux distribution because basically it is declarative. So think of having a configuration file to define your Linux system. So instead of doing operations to get the system that you want, you clearly define its state and Nix will give it to you. So this, alongside with how Nix works under the hood, makes it reproducible, which can be very handy in many situations. For instance, if you want to have the same configuration on several systems, this is very easy with NixOS. And finally, it is using the Nix package manager, so you get access to a huge repository of packages. This is an example of what a NixOS configuration can look like. So for instance, you can decide which package you want to be installed on the system, and you directly pull them from the Nix packages repository. You can enable some services, so here the SSH server, or even to install GNOME. So you can do several different things and much more than that with NixOS. Now Home Manager. It's a completely separate project that applies the same concept to your home environment. So it lets you install programs, configure them, and much more. It runs on any Linux distribution, including NixOS and also macOS. And actually, it's a very powerful tool because it lets you define all the state of your home environment. So here is an example of the options that you can set in Home Manager. So you can set shell aliases, you can add environment variables, you can of course install some packages from the Nix packages repository, you can configure the packages with some options, for instance tmux here or git, you can enable some user services, and even configure your favorite window manager. So then you might ask, what about the best editor in the world? Can we configure Neovim within Home Manager? And the answer is yes, there is a Neovim module for Home Manager. By enabling it, you can install Neovim, obviously. You can also add some packages that will be embedded inside the Neovim package, so they will be accessible. For instance, you can put your language servers, your formatters, or whatever. Remember that the Vim plugins are packaged, many of them inside Nix packages, so you can add them here in this plugins option. They will be made available to Neovim, they will be installed in Neovim, so no need for plugin manager afterwards, it's done like this. And you can add some configuration in Vim script for each plugin that will be concatenated into the final Vimrc. Finally, you can add some extra Lua configuration, so directly some Lua code that will be added inside the generated init.lua. So this is already very powerful, but it's not very confident. You would not like to put your entire 10 files Lua configuration inside this framework because it would boil down to copy-pasting the Lua inside this extra Lua config to, okay, adding the plugin is fine, but we can do better actually. So here comes Nixvim. So Nixvim is yet another separate project that allows you to configure Neovim thanks to Nix in a more friendly way. It applies the same idea as NixOS and Home Manager, but this time to Neovim configuration. You can, with Nixvim, obviously install Neovim, install the plugins like we have seen before, the same as Home Manager. You can install additional required packages, and thanks to many options, you can define your configuration and they will be put into the generated init.lua file at the end. So what you get when you build your Nixvim configuration is a fully featured, fully custom Neovim package that when run has all what you need to start working without the need to do any post-install or whatever. I want to insist that Nixvim is not a Neovim distribution. It only allows you to configure it, to configure Neovim without actually doing many ththings in the back. So this is important to note. Now some examples of what you can do with Nixvim. So obviously you can set some options, for instance at the time file encoding. So any Neovim option you can set it here. The global variables as well, you can set them easily. You can set a color scheme, so this line, for instance, will install the Groovebox plugin and set it as the default color scheme without the need to do anything more. Many of the Vim functions, like the Lua APIs, are wrapped in Nixvim, so you can add file type associations, you can define highlight groups, you can obviously define key maps in a very extensible way. You can add your O groups, your auto commands in, again, a very friendly manner. Now, a big thing where Nixvim shines is for plugins. So we have added the support for many plugins that we propose to install, thanks to nixpkgs again in the background, but also to configure through very simple options. So here I picked two completely random examples of plugins, but for instance, enabling Harpoon will install it, and here you can define key maps in a very friendly manner, and Nixvim will add the necessary key maps. So in certain cases, we do this kind of add this kind of convenient options to add key maps or do something else. But in other cases, it can just be used to configure the plugin itself, and then the options will be a one-to-one mapping of the upstream plugin options. Actually, there is not only Harpoon and Telescope in Nixvim. We currently have 166 total plugins, and we are adding more every week. So Neo3, Fugitive, and VimDAP, we have the completion and much more. Another example of plugins that where Nixvim really helps is the LSP. So it's under the hood, it's NVim LSP config that we enable, and then so this will install LSP configs. But then for each language server that you install, it will make sure that the language server is installed correctly, again, thanks to nixpkgs, and you can configure it furthermore. So here we enable the nil ls language server for Nix, the TS server, and then Rust Analyzer. And here it will install cargo for us automatically from nixpkgs, and we can set some options for this language server. So again, very powerful and very easy without the need to do any further installation after the fact. Obviously, you're not limited to the options we support, to the plugins we have added. You can add any package from nixpkgs that you want to include into your final Neovim version. You can add the plugins that are packaged in nixpkgs but not present directly in Nixvim. You can add them directly without any problem. And finally, you can add any arbitrary Lua code in the init.lua thanks to the extra config Lua option. Now, briefly on the installation methods, how you can get Nixvim. So if you already are using NixOS or Home Manager, there is an available module for them. So in this case, what adding Nixvim will do is that you will get an extra option, programs.nixvim, in either NixOS or Home Manager. And here you can put your whole Nixvim configuration, put every Nixvim option that you need. And in the end, it will add to your NixOS or Home Manager configuration your Neovim package. And it will be your version of Neovim that is completely ready and completely set up. There is another way to configure Nixvim, which is using what we call a flake. So this is some Nix concept. Basically, a flake.nix is within a Git repo. It has some inputs that are hashed and locked, so it makes the flake reproducible, and it can have several outputs, different outputs. One of those outputs can be a package, and what Nixvim allows you to do is a flake, which output is your Neovim configuration. And once you have that, you can run a flake from any computer which has Nix installed. So it doesn't have to be NixOS, it doesn't have to have a full Home Manager configuration or whatever. If just the Nix package manager is installed, you can get your full Neovim configuration running easily. So I will do a short demo now. I will jump into this computer, which is not running NixOS, it's running PopOS, but it has Nix installed, which is not very hard to do. So I will now fetch my flake from GitHub with this command. This will fetch all the dependencies and build my Neovim configuration directly on this machine. And that's it. It has launched my Neovim configuration directly. Everything is installed. I don't need to do any further step and I can start working. So with that, this is the end of my presentation. So thank you for listening. Here you can find all the links to find me online. So don't hesitate to do so. Also some resources. So obviously you can go to the nixos.org website to learn both about Nix and NixOS. There is the GitHub for the project, Nixvim, and finally an amazing YouTube channel called VimJoyer, which has plenty of very clear videos about Nix, so it's a good starting point to go there. Finally, thank you to the contributors of Nixvim. I am today one of the main contributors, but it's Pedro Alves who started the project back in 2020, and now I am maintaining it with Quentin Boyer also. So thank you for listening, and have a great Neovim conference.